Welcome to World Economic Forum 2024 at Davos. I have a very special guest with me, the man himself who presides over the summit. I have with us WEF President Borge Brende. Borge, thank you so much for speaking to Times Network. It's a pleasure having you on this network. And I wanted to save this interview for the last because I wanted key takeaways from you from this year's summit and the key highlights that you captured during the summit, considering that the fragmented world is still one of the major areas of concern and even a theme for World Economic Forum.
Thank you for inviting me, and you're so right. We are faced with a fragmented and fractured world, and the geopolitical backdrop this meeting was facing is the most difficult and serious in decades. So what we tried here was to secure that we had all the key players in Davos. We had Americans, Chinese, Indians, even Iranians were here, and we tried to have dialogue where we could find some areas of common interest for collaboration. So even if there is big competition, for example, between China and the US, there are areas where they can and should collaborate. Climate change, also on AI, how we can make sure that it works in the interest of humankind. We know cyber security is a growing topic. $2 trillion we lost in GDP all over the world because of cyber attacks, and it has increased fourfold just in a few years. And now with Gen AI, with artificial intelligence, you can create also supercomputers that can be even more effective in attacking than the walls that are built. So we had dialogues here in Davos. We tried to see, can we create some traffic rules? Can we agree on some rules of the game?
Right. But Borge, since you mentioned geopolitical situations, I want to actually sort of spend some time on that. We have a situation in Middle East where every day there are some new frontiers coming up, the latest being a limited conflict between Iran and Pakistan. And then you have the Red Sea situation where there is increasing naval presence required now to keep that route open. You already have an ongoing war in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine. And then you have the current ongoing stress between China and Taiwan. So it is, like you said, a very difficult situation, and we haven't had this kind of a sort of a situation in last many decades. So
it's
how
true.
comfortable are you with that?
No, I'm not comfortable at all with those wars and conflicts. What we are very worried about is that the nascent growth that we're seeing now in the global economy, we're doing not that bad. We could have done a lot better, but we expect 2.9% global growth this year. But we're increasingly worried that some of these wars can have also negative impact on trade and hence growth. So we will need to put every resource into making sure that there is no further escalations. And the picture you painted is quite grim. One can also, if you want to paint it even grimmer, you can add the situation in Sudan.
Yes.
Terrible, huge regional consequences. The situation with all the coups d'etats in West Africa is not good, and the situation between Armenia and Azerbaijan is still also quite precarious. So there is a lot to worry about. But on the positive side, though, we were very worried that it would further escalate. It has escalated to a certain extent. The Houthis attack on the ships then going through the Red Sea and through the Suez Canal is very worrisome because its freedom of navigation is threatened. And then, of course, the latest incidences of Iran attacking Iraq, Erbil, Kurdistan, and also what is now unfolding between Iran and Pakistan is not good news.
Right. So in such a scenario or in such a situation, we already had a sort of a trade cold war going on between two of the largest economies, China and US, and now you have this added complication with the whole geopolitical situation. How confident are you of creating some sort of cohesive environment for cooperation at global level to ensure that the basic spirit of globalization stays on track?
So we can look at the glass half full or half empty. There's a lot of talk about tariffs, protectionism, friendshoring, nearshoring, and decoupling. But still last year, trade globally did grow. It grew with 0.8%. That's a lot lower than the trend growth, of course, for the 2030 last years. And trade used to be the engine of growth. But this year we do expect, though, 3% trade growth. So even with those measures being taken, there's still growth, but there will be no real economic recovery without a trade and investment recovery. And we're not there at the moment. So we were very worried about the tariffs and protectionism and industry policies. But no, I think we're more worried that the growing trade growth and investments can be hampered and by the geopolitical conflicts. We have challenges already in the Panama Canal that is not related to conflicts, but it's climate change and it's like access to the canal. But no, if you have these disruptions going on also in the Suez Canal, that is like the bloodline for many nations, including India. It can lead to also higher oil and gas prices. And if we end up with higher oil prices, that's very bad news for the global economy too, because big emerging economies that are growing substantially are big importers also of oil. Look at India, look at China, net importer of oil, and in China they are trying to revive growth again. Of course the growth is great in India, but I don't think anyone in India wants now, also in the run-up to elections, much higher oil prices.
That's true. India has been pulling a lot of weight on a global stage in terms of economic growth, and it has remained the fastest growing large economy for quite some time now, and China's growth somehow refuses to revive. What is your view on India, its growth prospects, and the increased influence and responsibility that India has on global stage?
So I'm very bullish on the Indian economy. I have to say that. More than 7%, I think, this year. And India is well positioned to continue this. It's a $3 trillion economy today, and that is not enough for a country of that size.
Correct.
So there's, of course, a lot of catch-up, but it has now a momentum that is incredible. And India has also two things going for it, of course more than two, but if I'm going to underpin two things. One thing is that digital trade is like 15% of the global economy, but it's growing twice as fast as the rest.
Yes.
And India is pretty well positioned here. Second is that services are growing also much faster than the traditional goods. Very good for India. If I should add one thing, if I may,
yes, please,
would be of course, India has also benefited from the friendshoring and diversification of supply chains. If you look a few years back, there were 0 iPhones produced and manufactured in India.
Yeah.
India was never the manufacturing hub of the world. That was China and maybe Vietnam, but India was the services. But no, I heard during this meeting, I haven't really checked it, but I think it was a good source, saying no, 25% of the iPhones will now be produced in India. And that has just happened like this. So there are then nations that chooses India. And of course, India-US relationship is pretty good. and that
It's good for the world as well.
So I know it's very good. U.S. is the largest economy in the world, 25%. And then India is seen as a friend by American industry and the American administration, and that's why also you will see some more friendshoring there. So India is in a way benefiting from what has been a soaring relationship between the U.S. and China. I think there is a little bit better now after Biden and also Xi Jinping met. And of course, India is in a very difficult balancing act here too. I don't necessarily want to elaborate on that, but I think it's challenging, but it's handled well so far.
Yeah, but I have a question on that. This year, in fact, is actually the year of democracies, with more than 50 countries actually going into elections, general elections, and some of the largest parts of the world are actually going to vote for their leader. Obviously, the rhetoric is going to increase. We'll see it in US, we'll see it in India, and in a host of other countries. Even, in fact, in our neighborhood, there are so many countries. Are you concerned about that? Because that sort of creates a sort of challenge or visibility issue for the global growth.
Yeah, now that's true. I think in the U.S. it has already been going on for a few
years.
But we might see this also in India now in the run-up to the elections, because it's so much at stake. I would say Russia is also going into elections. I don't think there's that much suspense there. I think we know who will be re-elected as president of Russia. But India, of course, is interesting to follow, but I think the most important thing in India is to see if the reforms will continue, economic reforms, also pivoting towards more investments in infrastructure, getting rid of red tape, good governance, and also that it continues to open up for foreign direct investments. So there's a job to do there too.
Yes, absolutely. No, one last question to you. In fact, not even a question, but what would be your message to the Indian, stakeholders of Indian economy at this point in time?
I will be very careful giving too much kind of input there, because it's like going very well. We have the saying, don't repair what is not broken. Right. But I also feel that there is yet no complacency. I think seems like India is still on its toes to make sure that one continue the reforms. And if I were to give more long-term advice, is that the incredible youth bulge and the incredible youth and dividend that India has when it comes to its population, one need to make sure that they more and more get a world-class education from primary school and up. Because imagine if like hundreds of millions of Indian kids and adolescents come up at Western education level, it will be an incredible force in the fourth industrial revolution. And we have seen, for example, China has developed a lot there. They have like 12 million students graduating every year, and the quality of many of their universities are now at a pretty good. They are at like a state level in the U.S. on the quality, and I would invest more in R&D, great roads, great airports, and great universities, and then have a capital market where you have seed capital, pre-seed capital, venture capital, so you can even do more on the unicorns. But I also have to compliment India on the unicorns. So during COVID, there were like 100 new unicorns during COVID, if I remember the numbers right. This is like incredible India.
Right. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Mr. Borge, for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. Safe travels back home.
Thank you.
I guess you're done with snow for now?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.